Good morning. Welcome once again to Fort Meade Focus over Max 98.3 on this Sunday. And we are broadcasting around Polk County, and we're so glad you're joining us. Donna Renfro, your host today. Today in studio, I have a wonderful guest. She's been in front of the microphone many times, not only here, but on ABC and other local stations. And it is Carolyn Hennecy. Good morning, Carolyn Hennecy.
Good morning, Donna. Good morning.
It's great to have you here. In case, just to kind of familiarize yourself, Carolyn Hennecy has written a book, Orange Blossom Wishes. She has a website, Carol, and correct me, Carolyn, carolynhennecy.com. Correct?
Hennecy.
ECY. Okay, got that. And we will air that throughout our program today. We're talking about domestic violence, and if some of you, if you haven't read her book or heard her speak, I know you've probably seen various programs on television and in the Ledger, but we just want to reacquaint you. And we're a couple months ahead of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is, when is it, Carolyn?
That is in October.
All right. But the reason we're ahead is because, this issue, this awareness, this campaign, it doesn't stop, does it? It does not stop.
No, 24/7.
We have probably off the chart proportion or numbers, averages of domestic violence cases in this country.
Oh, let me give you a couple.
Okay.
When I first wrote my book, it was 1 in every 4 women would at some time become a victim of domestic violence. They have updated that. It is now 1 in every 3.
Oh.
And to really get your attention, every 9 seconds, a woman is abused or battered in the United States.
Now, that's a statistic we can't ignore.
You can't.
You can't. This is a thought I had today. We hear a lot about the war on women, and I'm thinking this is a complete misnomer. I mean, we're talking about people who are on talk shows, political pundits, and there's some ideology. So we're not talking about political parties. I'm talking about the war on women in the home.
Exactly.
And it really is. It's because one of the things that you talk about, you show in your book, that I've talked from talking with many women who've been through some of the Peace River programs here, and we've had Sherry Schwab on, who's with the Rape and Crisis and the Peace River Victim Services. And, people will tell you there's a fear there. It's like it may not be just economic. It's like, well, what do you mean? I should leave? I should leave my family, my husband? And plan? Imagine that a woman should plan to take care of herself.
They can find that on my website, actually, how to develop a safety plan for leaving and to develop a code word or a code phrase that you can use with a friend that you trust with your very life, because it could come down to that. And whenever you throw that code word or phrase out to them, they know that you need help and you need it now.
And it's so important, too, that maybe you haven't been a victim, but you must know someone else who's been a victim. Maybe after the divorce you found out, or maybe someone you could not believe. Oh, I can't believe that he would do that to her. Why, he's the nicest person. I've heard that before. Well, and then there are women who are doing horrible things in the home now.
Exactly,
that's scary,
yes,
too. It's not
yes.
just the men. But it can happen all across, all age, race, gender, and psychological and economic brackets. It's not just one area. Oh, well, it's people who aren't educated. No, that can happen to educated people.
The percentage of domestic or intimate partner violence in the United States among homosexual men in relationships with an intimate partner is the same level as a heterosexual white woman.
Okay. And, that doesn't, I wasn't aware of that exact number, but I'm not surprised.
That's it's 1 in 3.
1 in 3? Okay.
1 in 3.
Wow. So, hey, listen up. People think that that's safety. Just being married, just having a partner. No, because the issues, I guess, are within us. The issues are anger and the fact that it's a crime. If you can hurt someone else, you can be heterosexual, or as you said, you can be gay or straight. It's hitting our population.
The crux of the problem is that it is often seen as an anger management issue.
Okay.
When in fact it is really a power and control matter. And there is what's called the Duluth Model Power and Control Wheel. You can find it on my website, carolynhennecy.com. Take a look at that. If I had that in black and white in front of me many years ago when I was being slung around by my hair and having my head rammed into a door. I think then, because at the time I didn't see myself as a victim,
right?
Because I had no broken bones, I hadn't taken a gunshot, there were no knife wounds. But I would like to throw out there, and this is without exception, 100% of every incident of domestic violence starts verbally and emotionally. So for all of you out there who feel you are being abused verbally and emotionally, you are part of the domestic violence society, and it will only escalate. It's very important to get that safety plan put together. Better to be ready than to be dead.
You're listening to Carolyn Hennecy, and she speaks from experience. There was verbal abuse, emotional abuse from age 7 to 15.
I was sexually abused.
Sexually abused, and that was someone that knew you.
Yes,
you knew. Okay. I report stories all the time. Those of you who've heard both Andrea and I on the news, we have local stories, Florida stories, but also local sad stories. One woman just finally, it broke through Sheriff Grady Judd, but they found him in Fort Worth, Florida. I believe it's Fort Worth. But after 25 years, she was able to come forward, and somehow it got tracked down to Florida, and then they found him, and he went through a plea deal. But he is taking the rap. He went through a plea deal, and she's now seeing the justice. And after all these years, people think, oh, you can get over that. And as you said, the verbal abuse starting there, we shouldn't even take the verbal abuse. And like you said, some women even trick themselves, say, well, I don't see any blood, and oh, I'm so scared, I don't want to report this to the police. I'll just drop it because he didn't really break a bone.
And the next time will only be worse, and the next time will only be worse. Like I say, it only escalates.
And this is if you look at the cycle of violence and abuse that they will hand out from the center, such as our own Peace River, you will see that one on there. I also want to go back to what you said about power and control, because I think there's been a misconception there that it's so hard for women who start out, there's love there, they think there's love, and this power and control takes over. And I suppose there's something in many women and partners who, they don't, it slips up on them. I mean, they mistake that, or is it that the person comes back around after the first cycle, whether it's a calling names and then it stops, come back, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. Yes. And then it starts again.
It's a cycle. That's called the honeymoon phase.
Okay.
You have the honeymoon phase. I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I'll never do it again. You have roses show up at work. Then you go into the verbal and emotional abuse. And then you kind of have a cooling off period. Then you go back into the verbal and emotional, and then you have the honeymoon. But the honeymoon phase is usually when the victim will say, well, he's trying, and I don't want to end my marriage and break my family up. And a lot of it is because of religious beliefs.
And
they're told people. You can't leave, you can't divorce.
Right.
So which is it that God hates worse? Does he hate the divorce, or does he hate the abuse and the physical beatings and battery that the person is going through?
Oh, and it just talk about death do us part. That could be death. That happened to a woman, Rimmer, right here. It was death did part them.
Yes.
I mean, he killed her and then himself. And the children, fortunately, are alive. And, we've learned a lot about that case from right here in Lakeland. But you're listening to Carolyn Hennecy. She's domestic violence speaker. She's author. Her book is Orange Blossom Wishes. And there's a longer title with that. Orange Blossom Wishes, Child Molested, Woman Abused, Her Victorious Journey to Freedom. There's a lot of hope here. Carolyn spends a good bit of her time traveling. She speaks both nationwide in our own country here, but internationally. And I want to. There's a lot more to talk about, which we could only touch the surface here on domestic violence, but we'll be talking more in the fall as well. But let's talk a little bit about your trip to Trinidad, which was just a few months ago, and that had to do with helping empower women. What was that about?
I caught a call and was invited to come to Trinidad they're called AFET, the Association of Female Executives for Trinidad and Tobago. And when I got down there, I realized that the focus of their organization is to reach out to young girls in middle and senior high school, involve them in their work, and teach them how to become empowered and have self-confidence and realize that they do not have to give in to becoming a victim of abuse. While I was there, I was interviewed on 3 different television shows. The Trinidad Express newspaper did an interview, and the young girls just flocked around the table when I was giving out books to the schools. And you could just look in their eyes and see that they got it. Okay, and the one thing, if I didn't bring anything else back, because I visited one of the shelters, and it was in the slums. It was a very poor section of town. Mm-hmm. So I got to see both ends of Trinidad. Right. And the one thing that really stood out to me was that they were reaching these young girls, breaking that cycle, and these young girls were being empowered to believe that they had self-value, they had self-worth, and they did not have to sit back and let someone belittle them, degrade them, or touch them inappropriately.
This is fantastic. And you think in this day and age, are we still dealing with this? Yes. I mean, you can hear other incidences in around the world, like what's happening to those women in Africa.
Yes.
And you think women don't have the strength. Yes, those 63 of them that were able to break free, fantastic. We celebrate that. And, women around the world in other countries that haven't had this type of culture life. Now you're helping spread that word. That's fabulous. And that this agency, was it the agency, the group down the organization, already doing a good job?
Yes, they are. They're very steadfast in raising young women and setting an example for them to follow.
And that brings me to another word too, is here in America, if women think that by staying they're setting an example for their daughters, their children, that's something to think about. What kind of example are you setting? No one's here to promote divorce per se. This is we're talking about life and death and your mental state and your emotional state, and as you said, self-worth. There's no marriage if you've beaten somebody down and abusing. I can't see that, and I'm sure there's many people who would debate on that area, but I don't even think many pastors could support that.
Verbal attack can cut just as deeply and cause just as much injury and damage as a knife or a gun.
That's another concept that a lot of women slow to catch. Very important. Again, we're speaking with Carolyn Hennecy, and we just have a few minutes left. I want you to talk about, we've been talking about her trips, her speaking engagements. There's more coming up. There's 2 coming up in the fall, and we'll come back and talk with her later. But let's, real quickly, can you outline what you're doing this fall? Because that's very exciting.
Oh, this fall, the early part of October, I will be traveling to Tracy, California, just outside of Oakland. And the Chest of Hope, their theme for the luncheon is going to be Lady Sings the Blues No More. Ooh. And they have asked me to come out, share my story, and spread a word of encouragement, enlightenment, and the possibility of restoration of life and of hope and faith.
I love those words.
And then in the end of October, I'm thrilled that I will be traveling to Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And in the same day, I will be speaking and sharing my story at the luncheon. And then later in the day, I am going to be conducting a training for the staff at Fort Carson military base. And I've been told Fort Carson is the 2nd largest base in the country. So we're expecting big numbers. And we all know that there is a pandemic problem in the military with sexual assault, but there's also a pandemic of domestic violence as well.
That's just been coming out again in recent years, and it's really sad and hard to take, and because so many of our military are so upstanding people. But in the past years, it seems like it's broken out. It's so different, and so whatever was hitting the regular, the everyday life was hitting the military. So that's really sad. But they're doing something. I'm so impressed, and I think this is amazing. We just have a few minutes left. Actually, I can't believe we're down to less than a minute. Let's give a website real quick for people to get more information.
Carolyn Hennecy, CarolynHennecy.com.
Okay, everyone, Carolyn Hennecy, domestic violence speaker, a woman who helps empower others, and a survivor herself. And you may want to you can check the website. There's book information there, and she's going to be taking 2 speaking engagements in the fall. We'll have you back, talk more about those. So thank you for coming in today and sharing with us.
It is always a pleasure and an honor.